Hello, my Buff 1000 Nation. How's everyone doing today? Hopefully, everyone's having a great day. If not, I hope it gets better from here. All right, we are back with another That chapter. This one is titled, This Family Was Hunted in a Cave. I ain't kidding. That's what's that, see? This family was hunted in a cave. Makes me feel bad for the cave and the family. Everyone involved. Alright. I'm excited. I love stories like this. So, let's go ahead, get into today's story. Go ahead, turn them lights down low, put on something comfy, cut it up with someone special. Let's get terrified. Sounds terrifying.
Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this
You got a Mr. Bowen-esque going on here.
video, what I have for you is a story set entirely in the woods. The woods of the mind. But also the real woods, so I'm not sure why I just said that. Though by that, I mean we're not just going to any old forestino, you know what I mean? We're going to a national forest. The Siskiyou Mountains are part of the Klamath Range, and they are in Northern California, Southern Oregon, so that's where we're gone. Wait, what? The year, it's 1974, if you can believe that. And the Cowden family, 4 of them, check them, were celebrating Labor Day weekend.
Okay.
They would all vanish in...
Did you say 1974? I mean, that was like 11 years before I was even born. This happened a long time ago.
...into those woods. For like a bit. But you know, when they were found, you would almost wish they weren't. Let's give it a go.
Oh shit. He makes me nervous sometimes. I called him Calvin.
Wow, what a scene I have for you in this old one, folks. Well, like, the next paragraph. Anyways, because after that I'm gonna get into... yeah. But hey, trees, am I right?
Yeah, I love trees.
The Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest straddles the
I love trees. They help me breathe.
border between 2 states and covers almost 1.8 million acres. That is almost 7,500 kilometers squared. Or to use another term, it big.
It big. It real big. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. You get down there and you get in them big old parts and you get lost. You get turned around and you be kissing your own ass before the sun's down.
In the forest, you'll find some trees over there, a couple of rocks here, and rivers galore, including Rogue River, which sounds pretty cool. You can go hiking, or fishing, maybe mountain biking, or how about plain old camping. Tourists aplenty during the season, filling up the forest and the myriad smaller towns surrounding the wilds, headed up by Medford, Oregon. And the family I'm talking about, they knew those woods and they knew those towns about as well as you can know them, for they were locals. It was in late summer.
Knew them like the back of their hand. There you go, bud. I'll help you out, Mike.
1974. Well, I mean, it's autumn. Does Labor Day count as like the last of summer or the start of it? Well, it doesn't matter. The Cowden family were going camping for
Last of summer. It's when usually like pools and stuff close.
Labor Day weekend, something they had done countless times before. They were going to a familiar spot, camping in the Siskiyou Mountains right by Carberry Creek near Copper. Here's some pictures courtesy of Google. Cheers, pal. Though our story takes place about 50 years ago, it would have looked, much the same. Yeah, there we go. The Cowden family was made up of 28-year-old Richard Cowden, his wife, 22-year-old Belinda, and their 2 children, 5-year-old David and 5-month-old Melissa.
Mm-hmm.
David was in fact a child
Handsome little family.
of Belinda's from a previous marriage, but Richard he absolutely adored him, he loved him, you know, as much as if he was his own child.
That's amazing right there. That's amazing. Hell yeah. Oh god, this is going to end so bad, ain't it? Oh fuck. It's starting way too fucking sweet.
The Cowdens lived in White City, Oregon. It's on the other side of Medford, about an hour's drive away. As I said, they were natives to that area. They had lived, you know, in like Jackson County and surrounds their entire lives. So this wasn't a case of, you know, some city slickers coming in there. dealing with some yokels. They knew everything, and they knew what they were getting into. By that I mean they didn't. Richard was a logging truck driver by trade, had been his entire life, and he loved it. He loved being out in the woods, he was good at it, and he was gearing up for another busy season ahead as you get into the autumn and winter months. Belinda was a stay-at-home mother.
Hey, I understand that 100%. I'm good in the woods. Like, you can blindfold me, helicopter drop me in the middle of the woods, and I'm gonna be just fine. I love the woods.
Life in the Cowden family was pretty swell and pretty normal. They had a little 3-bedroom home, they were chipping away at the mortgage, they had savings. They were ready for the winter, they had just done up young David's bedroom, and they were going out for one last, weekend away, one last camping trip before the end of the year. The whole camping trip that Labor Day weekend to Carberry Creek, it was actually kind of like last minute. Richard, he initially had plans for that weekend. He was going to do up the driveway, but that fell through, and so they were like, hey, let's go camping.
Oh yeah?
The Carberry Creek campsite is remote enough. It's beside the town of Copper, or rather it was. The town of Copper would be flooded in 1980, 6 years after our story begins, when a dam was built on Applegate River.
Alright. I have mixed feelings on that stuff. Like, I understand they have to build the dam because it's destroying whatever, or for whatever reason it has to be done. But I also understand, like, there is a whole little town now underwater that had a history. And like, I've watched some, like, TV shows and stuff like that. Discovery Channel and whatnot, where people will actually, like, go diving in the areas where these towns was, and you'll still see, like, beds put together. Like, it's dilapidated as shit, but toys still there. Like, it's like they just all just left everything. It's crazy. Get a chance, go check them out. Like, it's really interesting though.
It wasn't much of a town to begin with, so no great loss there. You had a shop, a general store, a couple of houses, end of list. So they
It's still history, bud.
drove out there on the Friday with their basset hound, old Droopy. He's a good boy. They drove out there. They parked the car on the road, and they went into the campsite. The plan was to spend 2 nights there, the Friday night, Saturday night, and then on Sunday, they were going to stop off at Belinda's mother's house. She lived in Copper, in one of the few houses in Copper. They were going to stop off, have some din-dins with her, and then head back home to White City. It was a beautiful weekend, not a cloud in the sky. So what they actually got up to while camping out there, no one really knows, but it's believed they had a grand old time. So this is a part of the story where things take a turn for the worse and they stop being that grand old time. On the Sunday, the day they were due to leave, at 9 a.m, Richard and young David were last seen. They were last seen in the general store in Copper. It's about a mile down the road. They'd popped in for some milk. You can't do without the milk, lads. They popped in, and the people who saw them, like the worker in the store, said they were in grand old form. They were fine lads. They didn't seem bothered or upset or anything. They were yapping away to them. So they picked up some milk and then they walked back to the campsite. Now, what happened then is the great mystery. So if Richard and David went to the store to get some milk, that would mean Belinda and the baby were back at the campsite. Could something have happened while the 2 boys were away? The next thing to happen after Richard and David were last seen that morning was Belinda's mother. They had said they were going to stop off at her house.
So, is this one of those situations? Is this a mystery? Like, is this one of those situations where no one really knows what happens? But something really fucked up happened, and this is gonna drive me insane.
For some grub before heading home. She prepared dinner, that afternoon for them. A lot of grub. She was like, Jesus, where are they? come on, what's the hold up?
Jesus.
They never showed up for dinner. Belinda's mother,
I love how he says words. I do. I love his dialect. Sorry, Mike. I did not mean to pause on these fucked up faces you make, but I love how you talk about it.
they would have shown up. So after a while, she's waiting around. She was like, here, listen, they're only down the road. Let me go check on them. She drove down to Carberry Creek campsite. She found the Cowdens pickup truck. It was still there where they had parked it beside the road. And as she walked into the actual campsite, that's when she began to worry. Now, when she walked in, everything was laid out like they were just there. I'm talking the stove. Their shit was all there, like their Belinda's purse, David's wallet, his keys to his car were there. All their camping stuff was right there, as if they had just were there 1 second ago. There was no sign of her daughter, son-in-law, or 2 grandchildren, not even the dog. But it looked like they'd be back any minute.
Alright. I can handle loads of shit. I don't like to hear about poor puppies. I hate it when the animal dies. I don't like movies where the animal I still to this day cannot watch John Wick 1. I can't make it past the first little bit. I can watch the rest of them, but I can't watch John Wick 1. I can't do it. That kills me. Oh, I don't like anything where the puppy dies or the kitty dies or anything that you are emotionally attached to as an animal extra that passes away, unfortunately or untimely or tragically or just ruthlessly. Oh, I hope the puppy lived. And the kids. Yeah. But definitely the puppy.
Dishes were there, cutlery was there. There was even the bottle of milk that they had bought that very morning. It was on the table, half full, so they'd made it back to the campsite, and I guess things must have been okay at the campsite if they started drinking, and then after, something happened where 4 of them, 5 counting the dog, just vanished. Everything was in its right place, but it was wrong. Belinda's mother hung around the campsite for some time, calling out, checking the nearby river, doing the whole shebang. The fact that all their stuff was right there and they weren't, it didn't look like they were also expecting to go anywhere, because the purse was there, the keys were there, right out in the open. If they had gone for a quick hike or a quick walk or even out to the river, they wouldn't have left, stuff like that just lying out there where anybody could come across it, even if they'd only been gone for 10 minutes. Maybe they had an accident at the river or something like that. She checked. No sign. It was like they disappeared into nothing. And as evening approached, Belinda's mother, she drove back home and called the Jackson County Sheriff. Troopers went out there, back to the camp, and it was just as she left it. Still no sign of the family, but also nothing wrong, no blood or signs of violence. Creepy was how it was later described. So you know what they were immediately thinking. Bigfoot finally has his taste for man flesh.
Bigfoot. I don't know, if it was Bigfoot, there would probably been a struggle. I'd say it was aliens. They just flew over, flew away. As if it was Bigfoot, you would see some giant-ass feet print, and there would have been more of a struggle.
The next morning, a full search began for the Cowdens. But before it did, they got a lead. Droopy turned up. He had wandered...
Yes! Fucking hero, doggy! The puppet's alive! Woo! I can sleep easy tonight.
Into the town of Copper in the middle of the night, and he had been scratching at the general store door. Let me in, for fuck's sake! Questioning him, unfortunately didn't lead anywhere. So the search began, and it would be one of the biggest in Oregon history. Pick a random acronym, it was there helping the search. Whirlybirds with infrared. Dogs, which led nowhere. Everything, roads, looking for tire tracks. Everything was searched and nothing was found. The whole shebang, but nothing. It didn't look like the family had just left of their own accord. Everything was laid out as if they had expected to be right back. And it wasn't like they would just, disappear into the woods, leaving all their shit there. I'm talking, there was an expensive watch there, his wallet, cash, Belinda's purse, cash, all that kind of stuff. It looked like they had left for 2 minutes and something had happened, or something had happened while they were there in the camp, maybe even getting ready to start packing up and leave. Everywhere around was searched. Caves, mines, the woods, waterways were searched, and, through the rocks in case, they'd fallen into the water, their bodies would have washed up somewhere. Their house back in White City, nothing. Hadn't been touched. The police began to think the family had been taken from there, probably against their will. But if they had been taken, why hadn't an expensive watch been taken, cash been taken, the Cowden pickup truck, and the keys were still there? If they had been taken, why weren't they robbed?
Maybe it was like the most dangerous game type shit. Maybe they just took them so they could hunt them and kill them. Maybe they took them just to kill them and eat them. God only fucking knows, man. There's some fucked up people out there, bud.
Like, someone could have tried to take a young woman, and her baby, but there was evidence that Richard and David came back because of the milk was there. So, trying to abduct an entire family, though? The search was super intensive for the first week, but would die down with no leads. The family's home life, it seemed great. They weren't earning the big bucks, but they were doing okay. Whatever happened, they hadn't planned on it. The families, they helped out Richard's dad. He'd been a trapper. He knew the wilderness well. Nothing. Rewards were offered. Hunters heading out there for the season. Keep an eye out. Squat. Autumn would turn to winter, to spring, with no sign of the Cowdens. People requested the FBI get involved, but as there was no evidence of a crime, they couldn't. Not yet. On the 12th of April, 1975, so about over 7 months since the Cowdens vanished, 2 young men were in the woods about 7 miles-ish east of Carberry Creek, near a place called Sturgis Fork. Few mountains in between. They were out prospecting for gold, baby. Some of that natural bling. And, as they were wandering through the woods,
there's gold in them there hills.
They came across a very, scary and horrific sight. Bones. At first, they saw bones on the forest floor. Small ones just kind of littered around. And then eventually, looking up, they saw a skeleton tied to a tree. Scattered around it was a lot more bones. It had been there for some time. They immediately booked it, as I would, and called the cops. Going around hoping that maybe it was all secured.
Sorry, I fat fingered. I've taken it back, I think, to the right place. What the fuck? Why is there bones everywhere and tied to?
It had been there for some time. They immediately booked it.
Okay, we're back where we why? We're back where he was at before my brain went to and I start pushing buttons. What the? Why is this skeleton tied to a tree? What more? I mean, I know it probably wasn't a skeleton when it was originally tied to a tree. And why is there bones everywhere? Is this the family? Oh God! The puppy lived though. The puppy lived.
As I would, and called the cops. The police arrived and secured the area, and from dental records they could tell that it was Richard Cowden who was tied to the tree. This was now a crime scene, and it was also now like something out of a horror movie, finding a skeleton bound to a tree. The police, they immediately, secured the area and were going around hoping that maybe nearby they might find Belinda and the 2 children, and, well, not far was a cave, the entrance covered over with smaller rocks. The authorities moved them and went inside the cave. Inside were the bodies of Belinda, David, and Melissa. They had finally found the Cowdens, and it was horrific. So examining the bones that were left behind, both Belinda and young David had been shot in the head with a 22, like a rifle, a 22 caliber. The baby, Melissa, she had been beaten to death. And Richard, who was the one bound to a tree, they couldn't tell how he had been killed. He had no bullet marks on his bones or on his skull, so he had been...
So, the father/stepfather, Richard, was tied to a tree. He could have been tied to a tree alive and just left there to die. God only knows, because these motherfuckers shot a little boy in the fucking head with a 22, beat a baby to death. Oh, I hope they know who the fuck did it. I hope they found who the fuck did it. And I hope they do everything to them that they did to this family.
been tied to a tree and then either stabbed to death or strangled. Whether this was after or before his wife and children were murdered, we don't know. One idea that quickly came and then went was that Richard had done this himself. He had murdered his wife and 2 kids and then killed himself. But, I mean, 1, he was found tied to a tree, so he couldn't have done it himself. And 2, the rifle that was used has never been located. So if he had done it, the murder weapon couldn't have been far. So whoever did this was likely a local. They knew the area and they knew it well. One other really strange and very creepy fact is that the area the bodies were found in, the tree and the cave, which were close to each other, that area had been searched back in September, a week after the Cowdens went missing. There was no one there at that time. The guy told the police, yeah, I searched that area. He could confirm the exact cave he had searched, and he said, yeah, they definitely weren't here. So what that must mean is that the Cowdens, all 4 of them, must have been kept hostage, kidnapped, somewhere for about a week before they were brought to that location. Maybe after the search died down, and then they were killed. Maybe the person who did it took part in the search. I mean, they must have been alive, because it seems like they were definitely killed at that spot, because shell casings were found at that spot. Also, why would you bind a man to a tree if he was already dead? So what the hell happened over that week? The police, obviously, they wanted to speak with anybody who had been in the area around the time of, the believed abduction had taken place. Now, some campers had seen Droopy the dog a couple of miles away from the Carberry Creek campsite, but they didn't think anything of it. They just saw a dog wandering around. The dog would eventually make its way to Copper. Though another family who were up there from LA, they also went up there to camp, and they'd seen something quite strange. They arrived to the campsite on the 1st of September, which is the Sunday. So they arrived there after the Cowdens had been abducted. When they got there, though, they said they saw 3 people, 2 men and a woman, in a pickup truck. And they just said those people really gave this family the creeps. It seemed like they were waiting for this family to leave, and they creeped them with so much they just left. Could that have been Richard, Belinda, and the killer? The killer had a gun in there holding them in the truck. There has only ever really been one suspect in this case, so let's give it a go.
Just give it a go. Oh my god. I just thought it was a cool title. Family got hunted in cave. Like, I didn't know it was going to be beating babies and just straight up fucked. Oh.
Dwayne Lee Little was 25 years old in 1974, from the town of Rutch, near the National Forest. He had been paroled from the Oregon State Penitentiary 4 months before the Cowdens visited Carberry Creek. He had been in prison for raping and murdering a teenage girl named Orla Phipps. He had been, a charming, good-looking kid, class president. Orla, she had been a neighbor of his. Why he did what he did to her at 15 years old, no one really knows why. She just went out horseback riding one day. She never came back, and her body would eventually be found. Now, Dwayne, he did suffer head trauma when he was quite young, which is something we see in killers quite a bit. It's also believed his mother was inappropriate with him. Not that she was like raping him, but a bit like Psycho or something. When her body was found, there was more than enough evidence to convict him, and he was sent away for 10 years. Well, he wasn't sent away for 10 years, but he made parole after 10 years. When he got out in May 74, he worked in a warehouse in Medford. Dwayne's parents lived not too far from Carberry Creek. He lived with them, and he had been in Copper on Labor Day weekend. When asked, he denied any knowledge of the Cowdens, said he had never met them, never seen them. Now, Dwayne's girlfriend at the time, she would tell the police after Dwayne cheated on her, so she would tell the police that Dwayne in fact owned a .22 caliber rifle. So,
which he shouldn't be owning. He's a convicted felon. I'd be searching that shit. You don't even need a warrant now, bud.
Two things with that. Well, one is, as a convicted felon, he's not allowed to possess a firearm like that, or at all. And two, that's the same caliber gun the Cowdens, 2 of them, had been shot with. He went back to prison for that one, though he was out again in 1977. He was a charming guy. Yeah, very charming. In 1980, a pregnant woman named Margie Hunter, she was driving along near Portland when her car broke down. Portland, Oregon. She pulled over to the side of the road, obviously, and a good Samaritan picked her up and drove her off. Was going to give her a ride home. He didn't. He instead sexually assaulted her, strangled her, and stabbed the shit out of her. Now, Margie would survive, and she would then be able to identify the person that did this to her was Dwayne Lee Little. It was actually pretty easy for her to identify him because they worked together. He got 60 years for that one, and he remains the prime suspect in the Cowden murders.
Dude's a piece of shit, bro. I'm sorry, but people like that need to be shot in the fucking face.
He was a horrific killer. He grew up in that area. He knew that area real well. He owned the same rifle that they were murdered with.
Former Oregon State Police Detective Richard Davis is 81 years old and is one of the last surviving OSP detectives who investigated the Cowden family murders of 1974. Dwayne Lee Little.
People's lives, other people's lives to him are absolutely of no concern. He wants what he wants, and if I have to kill her to get it, that's the way it is.
The truck the family from LA saw those weird people in, well, that was the same truck that Dwayne's family owned. They had the same truck.
That same afternoon, he says an elderly couple claimed they saw a car matching Little's description driving a man and a woman.
The woman said there was a man driving, a woman in the middle, and another man on the right side. And she said, why I remembered is the road was very narrow and we were going slow, and she looked to be crying.
His alibi for what he was actually up to that Labor Day weekend could not be confirmed. He also refused to take a polygraph regarding the disappearance of the Cowden family. He wouldn't do it. He wouldn't take a polygraph regarding their disappearance, even when the police said to him, here, listen, you take this polygraph, you pass, we will remove the possession of a firearm charge against you. So he wouldn't have gone back to prison for a second time. He still refused to take the polygraph. He said he would rather go back to prison than have...
He fucking did it then. I'm sorry, but if you're going to let me... If I didn't do it, I did not do it. And I'm not going to go back to prison for owning a gun I'm not supposed to have if I just take the damn thing. Shit, sign me up. I'll do it. I'll do it right now. I'll do it standing on the head of my dick. I don't even give a fuck. He fucking did it. He fucking did it. Boo. Baby beating, child murdering piece of shit.
to answer questions about the Cowdens.
You take a polygraph on a missing Cowden family, the murder of the Cowden family. Although the polygraph I can't use in court, you take a polygraph I'll dismiss this gun case. He said no.
Later, an inmate would say Dwayne confessed to him that he killed the Cowdens, but nothing ever really came of it, and to date, no one knows who did.
What haunts you the most?
I am ashamed. I'm sorry. The Cowden family did not get justice. And I was a part of their not getting justice. And it haunts me.
Damn, bro. You're breaking my heart.
And so ends this very creepy and disturbing tale of the Cowden family massacre murders. A lot of people find the forest spooky. I think this story is probably a reason why. And it's horrific to think an entire family was taken and held captive. I don't think one man could have done this, though, could have taken the entire Cowden family, whether it was Dwayne or whether it was someone else. I believe they had help. If it was Dwayne, his family could well have helped him keep...
It's probably easier than what you think, dude. Because, I mean, most families are families. Like, they love each other unconditionally. If some dude showed up and put a gun to, like, one of the kids' heads or something, you're going to do whatever the fuck that they want you to do. Probably took the little boy. That way the lady would still have to tend to the baby. And it was like, you all do anything, I'm going to shoot the kid right in the head. You're going to do what they say to save your child. It wouldn't be that difficult for one person to overtake a whole family just by taking one person.
Them, kidnapped for a week before they were taken out and killed. But who knows? Maybe we will never. But it is...
Maybe the person that searched that area helped. Oh, I don't know. I haven't seen nothing there. It's all clear on my side.
One hell of a story to tell around the campfire. Thank you.
That's one campfire story I don't want to hear. Not out in the woods, bruh. Hey, I enjoy that story though. Like, I like the mysterious shit. I do. Like, definitely think dude did it. I mean, I definitely do. The family has a vehicle that matches the description of the truck. He owned that caliber gun. I don't know why they didn't check the bullets and the casings and all that good stuff against the gun. You know what I mean? And by the time they got it, I'm pretty sure it was close to the 80s. And I mean, I don't know when ballistic shit came into play really good, but I'm sure they had been able to get out there with a metal detector, find the bullets that went into them. Because I doubt he sat there and looked for them. And I'm sure there was a way to tie it back to that gun and tie it back to his ass and then beat him to death and with the gun, and then right before he dies, shoot him like right in the middle of the head, so it didn't kill him, like right through the middle where it goes through both hemispheres of the brain, but he's still alive. That way he feels all the pain of it, and then like just keep him alive, and just as soon as he gets good enough to take another beating, beat the shit out of him again. Any monster that could do that to a 5-month-old baby deserves more than I can imagine to do to him. Anyone that can do any harm to a child deserves... So they need to go and find the person with the most deranged imagination and have them imagine a punishment for them, and then times that by 10, and then do that. I hate to hear about people hurting children. The dog lived. The puppy lived, though. So, yeah. The rest of it was horrible, but the puppy lived. Alright, if you all enjoyed today's story as much as I did, please leave a thumbs up. If you're a fan of the spooky, scary, strange, things that just make you never want to go into the woods again, think about subscribing. And I promise, by the time you're done watching like maybe a week's worth of videos, you'll be scared to leave your own damn house. And as always, be good with one another. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Oh. But the puppy made it all the way to the general store. Let me the fuck in.